session, let's talk a bit of finance. Yes, the SBI story is the theme of our next session. For that, we have the former SBI chairman, Rajnish Kumar, with us. Could we please have you on stage? The State Bank of India is, of course, an iconic bank in India. And this session will be moderated by Devika Chopra, Assistant News Editor of NewsX. Over to you.
Uday. Thank you, Uday. Mr. Kumar, I'll just hand over your mic to you. Hopefully with filled tummies, we'll be able to have better conversations. SBI, of course, is a very vast brand. We don't have enough time to go into the history of many centuries now of the bank's existence. If you were to think about pre-independence, how would you, sir, explain the story of SBI?
Of the State Bank of India?
Yes.
Oh, as you have already mentioned that this was a bank which was established in Calcutta in 1806. So it was a creation of British Empire. And at that time it was called Presidency Bank of Calcutta. Later on, one Presidency Bank of Madras, Presidency Bank of Bombay. And 1921 they merged. Imperial Bank of India got created. And then after independence, there was a committee which was called All India Rural Credit Survey Committee. Its purpose was that how to increase flow of credit to the rural economy. And as a recommendation of that committee, State Bank of India was created under an Act of Parliament. It's a unique institution.
Yes.
It has been witness, you can say, to the economic, political, and social history of India for now more than 200 years. So to survive as an institution for more than 200 years, and more so after 1991, when the banking sector reforms were carried out and the competition from private banks became intense, but despite that, if the State Bank is still holding its flag high, it has lost its market share, despite HDFC, ICICI, Axis, everyone.
Yes.
So there is something which it does right.
Absolutely. And talking about that, Mr. Kumar, for a very long time, there was this image associated with government entities as them being dated, lethargic. How do you think SBI has managed to now shed that image?
So the trick is in the competition. As I said that I joined this bank in 1980 as a probationary officer. So I have seen that era, pre-reforms era, the working of the bank in that era, and after reforms. When there is a competition in the market, either you compete or you vanish.
Yes.
And that is where State Bank, I would say, has done well to remain competitive. And despite government ownership, it has been able to compete in the market based on its work culture and efficiencies. I'm not saying that everything may be or is all right with the functioning of the bank as an organization, but is still its results, its performance, in terms of market share, in terms of profits, that speaks for itself. So at least, even if you say that there was some lethargy or anything, but its competitors also may be having the same thing. Otherwise, how would you stand out and continue to be number one?
Absolutely. At the same time, sir, you said that the creation of SBI was rooted in ensuring that banking reaches the grassroots. How do you think SBI has managed to achieve that vision and goal? How exactly is banking now reaching the grassroots of India?
If you really want to get that answer, then travel to Ladakh, Leh, Northeast, interiors of India. So the only thing you will find there is maybe either a post office or a branch of a State Bank. And if not a branch, then definitely an ATM. When I was chairman, I visited Ladakh. And during that period, when I was passing through Khardungla, which is the highest point, and the Jawans there, they said that we have to go so many miles to draw money. Then we decided that we will put an ATM there. So it's a record that highest point, the State Bank of India has an ATM. 6 months there is snow. So 6 months it operates. It's a unique kind of ATM which runs on solar energy.
Wow, that's
so that kind of
fascinating.
spirit. So if it's about reach, again with the network of more than 22,000 branches, 65,000 ATMs, 75,000 or 70,000 business correspondents. So it just tried to touch, I think, life of almost every Indian.
And sir, of course, you've shared a very personal experience that it was through your own travel that you realized that there was a need, even at the highest point, for there to be access to financial institutions. If you can just share, before I come back to, of course, banking, if you can share from your tenure, one example of something that happened that allowed you to make a policy decision that has really impacted and left its legacy on SBI.
There would be many, but the main would be the digital journey of State Bank of India. And today, the digital bank of State Bank, which is YONO. So today, it is the largest in the world with user base of more than 60 million. And that was one initiative by the bank which has changed its image amongst the young people. And the thing you spoke about lethargy or a image of a government-owned public sector bank, but it enabled the bank to shed that image. And now the people realize that it's more tech-savvy than any other private bank in the country.
And at the same time, sir, another aspect that a lot of government entities perhaps used to suffer from, it was an image problem. Again, talking about red tapeism. How do you think SBI has managed to shed that aspect of being a government bank as well?
If you are a government bank, there are certain defined processes, and you are governed by certain rules and regulations. So, and for a large organization like State Bank of India, it is important that you follow certain process. You may call it red tape, but there is no way that a large organization like a State Bank can avoid that red tape. But is still within those processes, and by not short-circuiting those processes, there have been many improvements in the functioning of the banks, which enables to meet the customer needs in time. And as I said, that without diluting the rigor of the process, because when you are in the state bank, the numbers itself are so big, huge, that if you don't follow that process, you are carrying a huge risk. So certain things come because of the compulsion, because of the law, but within that also you can achieve a certain level of efficiency. Maybe even many large private sector organizations, you will hear the same thing if you talk to the people, that there is a lot of red tapeism, there is a lot of bureaucracy. But that happens because of the size of the organization itself. When you are a small 3-4 people, you can take decisions just like that. If it's your own money, then you don't have to care about. But when you're dealing with others' money like bank does, then I think there is a certain limit up to which you can have flexibility, but otherwise you will have to be a process-driven organization.
Absolutely. And at the same time, of course, our Prime Minister puts a lot of emphasis on Antyodaya, ensuring that everything reaches the last individual. What needs to be now done as far as the banking sector is concerned to ensure that every last Indian is having access to financial institutions, to banking policies? Because so many policies come about, they do get floated by the government, but we do see that as far as people of lower strata of society are concerned, there is still a lot of issues in terms of actually understanding the policy and then reaping the benefits. So how do we ensure that it actually reaches, this vision of Antyodaya that we've set for the entire country? How do we achieve that as far as access to financial institutions and government policies are concerned?
Yeah. So one thing which Honorable Prime Minister did, and that was August 14, when he launched the PM Jan Dhan Yojana. And at that time, 36 crore accounts were open. Now that number would have increased to, I'm sure, 46, 47 crore. So in terms of now availability of a bank account, we have done very good work. Banks, all banks, they have done good work with major share being handled by State Bank of India naturally. Where the reach of banking services, I can say, has reached the last. And this trinity of Jan Dhan accounts, Aadhaar and mobile, it has done wonders. Even during COVID, the Prime Minister announced that 500 rupees will be credited to the women's account for 3 months. It was impossible if we did not have this jam trinity. 12 crore accounts were there and banks were able to deposit every month in time that 500 rupees. Gigantic task. We may not realize how big that task is. You talked about the government schemes. So the issue is that there is definitely an overload. And the financial literacy level still remains poor in the country. So a lot of work needs to be done when it comes to financial literacy. And today is in the age of technology when the digital reach is there. It's not that difficult, but sometimes the schemes are also so many that it is difficult to even keep a track that how many schemes are there.
Schemes are so many and schemes are overlapping, and then one doesn't know, okay, once I know about the scheme, how do I proceed? What are my next steps? Is there something you feel that perhaps the banks that need to do in terms of increasing financial literacy?
Yeah, no, dissemination of information that is required. And as I said, that financial literacy needs to be improved at every level, even at the early stages of your education or children's education. We need to emphasize the importance of financial literacy and education about it. Rest is all about dissemination. Banking channels are there. And there are channels of the government department. But you look at the schemes only when you need something. That's what it happens.
Absolutely. And at the same time, Mr. Kumar, we just have a few minutes left, but I'd just like to pick your brain on a few other aspects as well. Another vision that has been set for the country is a $5 trillion economy mark. What role or what transformation or reforms do you think the banking sector needs urgently? And what role will the banking sector play in terms of pushing India in that direction?
So 5 trillion economy, of course, like banks are the most important channel when it comes to channelizing the investment. So that intermediation role, that will continue with the banks, and lot of investment which is currently happening in the infrastructure. The heavy lifting is all by the government. By the government. Private sector participation for certain reasons and past experiences in financing of infrastructure, particularly in the power and roads sector. So there was a setback. But now recently there are signs that the private sector investment in the infrastructure is coming back. And if that has to come back, the banks will have to play a very critical role in that. Investment in infrastructure, consumption demand, I think all banks are today very active, and availability of even credit is not an issue. And the other area which also needs still a lot of attention is availability of the credit for the agriculture sector in such a manner that it doesn't become a dole, or you don't have periodic write-offs. So that is one area which needs a lot of attention and reforms. And the MSME sector, I am very hopeful that riding on the wave of technology and whatever changes they are happening, the flow of credit to MSME is improving and is bound to improve.
Absolutely. And Mr. Kumar, before we let you go, I'd just like to understand from you, from what you've shared, I've understood that a lot of running even a government bank is about running it like a business. So as far as the customer is happy, the bank is going to be running well and healthy. So I just want to understand from you, SBI is, correct me if I'm wrong, one of the largest employers in the world. lakhs of employees.
I won't claim that that State
Okay,
Bank is the
let's
largest
say in
employer.
India at least,
What
one of
you
the
can
largest
say is
employers
that
in
one
India.
of the largest employer in the banking industry
Yes.
in India and one of the largest employers in India.
So what, as per you, is an effective management strategy?
Pardon?
What, as per you, would be an effective management strategy? Now I'm talking strictly in terms of you as a businessman and your vision for SBI.
No, so for any organization, and particularly if it is a service organization, then the most important resource is people. Any manufacturing industry today, if you see, they can run with automation and very few people employed. But service industry, it cannot run without people. So a workforce which is skilled, which is alive to the competition and the situation, and which is motivated. So if, as a leader who is running any organization, the most important aspect comes down to talent management. And there is a lot of competition for talent itself that
Yes.
also we have to realize. And if you talk about the public sector, then their hands are tied to the back. So the public sector organizations and their leaders, so we always used to say jokingly that we have to swim with all our hands tied up to the back. So that is an art you have to learn. And still, like, people deliver and organizations are delivering.
Absolutely. That's a very good thought to end this session at the Festival of Ideas. Thank you so much, Mr.
Thank you so
Rajnish Kumar.
much.